Hello, hello, fam. It's your girl, Natalie, the Keto Bikini Pro. Upper Body Pump today is brought to you by Shoulder Day. Just literally got done with my shoulder workout and just got back. So it's a good day. It's always a good day when it's Shoulder Day. It's my favorite. Happy Monday, fam. Happy Monday, ladies. Tonight we are talking about competition prep. I cannot believe in the I think it's been 3 years now that I've been doing these masterclasses, that I don't actually have a competition prep 101, competition prep basics masterclass. Can you believe that? I did a competition prep live Q&A way back in 2022, I believe. And then I did 2 masterclasses that I highly, highly recommend. As a matter of fact, tonight we are talking about the first steps to competition prep. So if you are even considering the thought of one day competing, maybe this is something you want to do, even if you're not sure whether or not it's something you actually want to do, but you're interested. We're going to talk about tonight the very first steps, the things that you need to do, the practical steps to prepare yourself to get ready for a comp prep. This is like pre-prep preparation. Pre-prep prep. So I'm going to go through a literal checklist, which is actually a resource that I have posted for my Academy members, which I'm going to talk about in a minute because we have some new resources and new things rolling out for our Academy members. But I actually have this in a checklist format, document format for them. So I'm actually I have that on another screen. I'm literally going to be talking through the checklist of before you begin your prep. What are the things you need to check off the list and make sure you have to be prepared for your prep? In a future class, and maybe I can just continue this next week with part 2, we can talk about the actual prep, the 8, 10, 12, 16, 20 weeks out to stage and what that process actually looks like. I'll likely get started talking about that because the timeline itself is part of the checklist. The pre-prep items is planning your timeline. So I'll start to talk about that tonight. But I want to get into more of the nuts and bolts of what happens in those few months before your show next time and a more in-depth maybe 102, competition prep, maybe 102. But tonight, 101, the basic practical steps you need to start taking to where do you even begin this journey? That kind of a thing. Now, what I'm not going to talk about tonight is the mindset. Y'all know my favorite thing to talk about, mindset. I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I covered that in depth along with a few other major things to think about before you even decide if competing is right for you. I did 2 masterclasses. I did a part 1 and part 2 called Should You Compete? And that is I'm thinking that this might be something I'd like to do one day. Watch those 2 first. So I'm going to say number 1 on the list tonight, first item on your checklist for preparing for a competition prep would be watching my first 2 masterclasses on Should You Compete. And they are linked below in the description already of this video, even already in the description for the live. I'll probably be adding a little bit more to that description box after this live, but those 2 are already in there. So that's going to be step 1 because that talks about getting your mind right. It talks about your health. It talks about your lifestyle things. So go there first. Tonight, we're getting into the practical action steps. So I know I have some ladies on here who are in prep or getting ready to be in prep this year for their first show. We have Becky in the chat. We have Mary Grace, Coach Mary Grace in the chat. They are both planning on getting on stage this year, and we'll be working together to do that. So I'm excited about that. All right. So a little exciting news is that we just rolled out a brand new resource library, which we call our resource vaults inside the Academy app, the Keto Bikini Academy app, where our members will have access to a whole vault of resources all about competition prep, including this checklist I'm going to be going through tonight, as well as timelines, budget templates, packing lists, peak week checklists, everything that you can think of that you would need for a prep. All of those resources will be available to all of our members. They actually already are. I dropped those over the weekend. We also just opened up a brand new community forum inside the app for those who are prepping or those who are thinking about prepping or just interested in it to drop questions, share their journeys, where we can dive in and share additional resources and support and encouragement and guidance throughout the process. So if you are someone who is thinking about competing on a low-carb diet, anything in the low-carb space from paleo to keto to carnivore, ketovore, and you're having a hard time finding help and support and guidance in a community who are down with the low-carb lifestyle, join the Keto Bikini Academy, and we now have additional support for comp prep in addition to our body transformation, lifestyle transformation programs. So that being said, we are starting a new program in the Academy on March 2nd. Our current training program will run through the end of February. All of our programs officially start on a Monday. We always drop them over a weekend. So March 2nd, the new program will be available, and that is an 8-week training program that will run through the end of April. So March and April. Last year, we called this our Prep for Summer program, and we did it for 3 months. This year, we'll be doing an 8-week program in March and April, and then we will run another 8-week program in May and June. So more details to come on that. But if you want to dive in now, you can join the Academy now from my website, which is also linked below, nataliejgrasso.com/Keto Bikini Academy. Okay. Now that the plug is over, let's dive into the deets about competition prep. And please, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. There may be things I didn't even think of that I didn't even put on this list, that your questions will help me make sure that I make this as exhaustive as possible. I want to cover everything you might be thinking about as you're considering going on this prep journey. So, all right, let me pull up my checklist. That's going to be my little cheat sheet here. Okay, so this checklist would go in the timeline of 1 to 2 years out. So you can start this checklist. You can start these steps, these action steps, these action items, objectives. You can start checking these things off. Really, some of this stuff you can do 5 or 10 years before you ever consider stepping on stage. It's just the first things that you're going to think about and start to get together before you begin your prep. This can be years out. As we get closer, I'll get into some of the things down the line that'll be a little closer to an actual prep timeline, stage prep timeline. But, this is a good question, Celeste. Funny enough, I just saw a comment in one of the prep groups that I'm in, which I should mention. I don't know if I have that on the list or not, but it's always a good idea to connect with communities of athletes, of those who are already competing, so you can get a picture into what they go through, what they're experiencing, what their questions or concerns are. I should put that on the list if it's not already. It might be already. But I just saw this in I'm in many bikini, figure, physique, wellness competitor groups online. And I see all kinds of questions and threads and topics that are being discussed all the time by other athletes. And this particular one was just discussed in one of those groups, and it is DHEA. Is it banned? Is it a banned substance for natural federations? So she says, my big question now is that I'm on DHEA. Is it still possible to compete as natty or not? I'm seeing mixed results online. So literally, as of today, the OCB will allow, the OCB is one of the natural drug tested federations, and they are one of the strictest natural federations in terms of their rigorous drug testing. And I believe they use polygraphs as well. They are allowing up to 100 milligrams of DHEA supplementation. Anything beyond 100 milligrams is banned. So it is considered a banned substance on the WADA list, the World Anti-Doping Association. They produce the list of banned substances, and then bodybuilding federations can add more to that list. They can be stricter, they can be less strict. And so apparently OCB is allowing up to 100 milligrams per day of DHEA supplementation. This thread I was literally just reading was saying that the NPC natural shows go strictly by the WADA list and that DHEA is not allowed at all. But we're going to get into this a little bit deeper because researching federations and drug testing and all of that is a big part of one of the things you need to do in advance. So it's actually going to be one of your checklist items tonight. So you are already thinking on the right track, and you've already got something on your radar. So that's awesome. Okay, so kind of along those lines, the first thing on my list here, after you check out my other two masterclasses about should you compete, one of the things I do talk about on those masterclasses is your health, knowing your health status, getting a picture of where you are with your health. So number one on this pre-competition prep checklist is get a physical and some basic blood work at the very minimum. Basic blood work. I am planning to eventually do a masterclass on blood work because I get a lot of questions about blood work. What kind of blood work should I be getting? What should I ask for? Hormone panels. What hormones should I request? All of that kind of thing. Now, I am not a blood work expert. I don't pretend to be. I do not interpret blood work. I am not trained in interpreting blood work. So while I do encourage clients, private clients, to share their blood work with me because more information is always good, and I have a basic understanding, what I cannot do is read someone's blood work, interpret their results for them the way your practitioner would. So I'm not going to get in depth into blood work right now, but I will say get some basic baselines of where your health is before you even begin to consider competing. You need to ensure that your health is at 100% because engaging in a competition prep, if you are overweight, over fat, we'll say over body weight, over body fat, you have excess body fat, to a point, the process can make you healthier. But in general, typically a competition prep is not a health journey, and it does not make you healthier. In many cases, it actually will detract from your health. Like any high-level athletics, you have to think about it like you are getting ready to go into a elite level athlete style training where you are pushing yourself to the max. So while having a long-term goal of eventually getting on stage can be very healthy because it's motivating you to do things that make you healthier, losing body fat, building muscle, improving your body composition, improving your strength, improving your bone density, all these great things that come with training and good nutrition and taking care of your self-care and your recovery and all the things that we have to do as athletes. having a long-term goal of getting on stage is one thing. Engaging in an actual stage prep generally is not going to make you healthier, and in fact can create some health issues you may have to deal with down the line, because we're talking about being at a healthy, lean, fit, athletic body composition at the start of your prep, and then getting to a place of being at an unhealthy, low level of body fat. So that's something to understand. And I know I talked about that, I think, in depth on those other masterclasses. So watch the masterclasses is number one. Number two is get a physical, get some basic blood work. Go see all your general, your general practitioner, your gynecologist. Get all your basic stuff done and find out where you are, baseline your health. All right. Along with that, if you are not already, begin taking your biometrics, your body metrics. And I have a whole separate masterclass I talked about recently on another masterclass called How to Interpret Smart Scales or something like that. It's all about how to do just that. I also have masterclasses on how to track like a pro. So you want to, along with your health markers that you're tracking, you also want to be tracking your biometrics, your body weight, your body composition, body fat. If you have a scale that measures body skeletal muscle mass, lean mass, you need to know more than just how much you weigh. You need to be tracking more than just your weight. You want to be starting to take measurements, body measurements. You want to take progress photos. It's never too soon to start doing these things. In fact, most of our Keto Bikini Academy members are not competing, are not thinking about ever competing. A grand majority never want to get on stage. But the same things that we would do to get on stage is the same process that we put our members through and our clients through, because that is my experience. That's how I created the transformation in my body. And so I have taken that, and that's how we teach our members how to create incredible body composition changes and health changes. So one of the biggest pieces of that is starting to track. So if you're not already tracking, track your biometrics. Ideally, at least weekly. And when you're in a closer time frame, this is where we're going to want to start doing it daily. Granted, if you're on a fat loss journey, a weight loss journey, you can do it daily and take your weekly averages. That's what we do inside the academy. All right. Along with tracking your biometrics, start tracking your nutrition. If you have never learned to track macros, log your food, know how much food you're consuming, how many grams of protein, carbs, and fats, so you can establish a baseline of where your nutrition is, that is key. That is going to be a skill you really need to have for a successful competition prep. Now, there are athletes that hire coaches to give them meal plans. They say, I don't want to track. I don't want to have to deal with macros and figuring out what I'm going to eat in my own meals. Please give me a meal plan. And that is a way that you can do it. However, I personally don't encourage that. I like to teach all of my clients and members to own your journey. Do not shop it out to someone else. What I see a lot in the bodybuilding space is that most of these athletes don't have a clue about nutrition, about training, about anything. They just say, I'm doing what my coach tells me to do. And then if something were to go wrong, they just have to rely on their coach to be able to tell them everything to do. And sometimes these coaches really mess people up. So getting a good coach is going to be an item on this list as well. And you need to be with a coach that you can trust and communicate with. But I'm not a fan of putting everything in your coach's hands and then saying, I'm not going to learn anything for myself. I just want you to tell me everything, and I'm not going to question you. I'm not going to ask. I don't want to know. Just tell me what to do. That is not a good idea, in my opinion. You want to be in the driver's seat, and you want to partner with your coach. Okay, so track your own nutrition, learn about nutrition. This is another reason why this is the pre-prep checklist. These are things that if you learn these things in advance, when you enter the prep period, it is going to be so much easier for you than it would be for somebody coming in green. Okay, so start tracking your nutrition, learn about nutrition, educate yourself, get into communities like ours in Keto Bikini Secrets on Facebook. Watching these master classes, learn what you can about nutrition, especially if you're in the low carb space, because it is hard to find coaches, trainers, and people in the fitness industry who are going to know anything about low carb. Okay, most of us in the low carb space learned a long time ago that we had to do our own research. All right, next up, join a gym or invest in some home gym equipment. Doesn't have to be anything fancy yet if you're just getting started. If you're just getting started, some dumbbells that feel heavy to you, some bands, maybe a pull-up bar will do wonders. Maybe a bench. You can work your way up to getting some more equipment. But joining a gym or getting some equipment that you can use, and then begin a structured, progressive training program that is designed for building a foundation of muscle, ideally a bodybuilding style training program that will teach you the basics of training like a bodybuilder. Okay, if you're starting from scratch, I don't recommend joining a fitness class at your gym, a Peloton, a follow-along workout video. While those can be great for a fitness journey in general, if you ever want to build the physique of a competitor, and if you ever want to step on stage, you need to learn to train like a bodybuilder. That means a hypertrophy style program that is designed to build muscle mass, meaning size, not just strength. So not a powerlifting or a power building or a strongman style training, and certainly not a cardio class with weights or Pilates or any of that. A structured, progressive training program designed for bodybuilding, and ideally for the female body. Bikini, wellness, figure, physique, something in the female space. So that's what we do. Another shameless plug for the Keto Bikini Academy. We focus, all of our training is always focused on building the bikini body. What do I mean by that? I mean that hourglass shape that is the coveted shape that women generally are looking for. That broad shoulders, a wider back so that we can taper the waist and make your waist look tiny, glutes, legs. Now, depending on what category or division that you want to eventually compete in, we would structure and customize training for your physique, for what you are trying to build, because bodybuilding is sculpting your masterpiece. We are literally focusing on the parts of your body that you need to build to create a particular shape. And based on the divisions, which I'll talk about in a little bit, we tailor the training to build that type of physique. Generally, we want to start with bikini, and that's where the Keto Bikini Academy, we basically focus on bikini because that's what's really going to create the shape that we generally want. And then if you wanted to specialize from there, we can move on to those particular divisions. But most women are looking for the glutes, that tapered waist shape. And so that starts with bikini. Some of that also is going to depend on your genetics and where you would fit best. And that's what we're working with the ladies that are competing this year. That's what we're working with them on, is we'll give you an assessment of where we think you would fit best. And then we can work specifically toward that division. That being said, I know I have this in here somewhere, but we'll get to that in a minute about getting an assessment. Before we get there, start a training program and track your training progress. So we already talked about tracking nutrition and tracking biometrics. Track your training progress. You want to see that you're progressing with your training, meaning you're getting stronger, you're lifting heavier, you might be adding more volume, being able to do more reps with the same weight. You want to be able to see how you are progressing through your program. And this can start 5, 10, 15 years before you ever get on stage. A lot of, especially the guys, because for women, it hasn't been around as long as it has for the men. But a lot of male bodybuilders, they were training since they were kids, basically. And then eventually one day they decided they wanted to get into competing. They didn't start training when they decided they wanted to compete. That's the biggest thing. And that is a huge mistake I see out there in these bikini groups that I'm in. I see women coming in, posting a picture. What do y'all think? Should I do? How long is it going to take me? Which division should I be in? And usually when you're going to see some good advice for them saying, well, how long have you been lifting? Have you even started lifting? You need an off season before you can ever even think about doing a cut. Because if you haven't built the foundation that you need of muscle, once you lose that body fat, you are going to look like skin and bones on stage. And that is not going to be competitive. So the biggest mistake, number one mistake I see out there, is women thinking that they can diet down and do a show when they have not trained for bodybuilding. Now, some women can get away with this if they are former athletes, track, different sports, but particular sports build a body that's ideal for that sport. For example, if you've seen pictures of CrossFitters, you generally see women in CrossFit with some big traps, a blocky waist, straight up and down, swole, right? That body now needs to be transformed to fit the criteria for bodybuilding. So a particular sport may set you up with a base of muscle, but then we have to chisel and create the masterpiece that will fit the criteria that the judges are looking for on stage. So track your training progress. Now, here's the big one. When it really comes down to stage prep, research. Research is huge. So you are tracking some of your own data by now. You have watched my other masterclasses to think about whether or not this is really right for you. Next step is to start researching. And what do I mean by researching? First things first, research competitions near you. That's usually going to be the easiest way to start research. Bodybuilding competition near me. Bodybuilding competition put the biggest city near where you live, if you are not in a big city already, or state. Look in your state, your city, in the surrounding areas, and look for competitions near you. A bunch of things will likely pop up in your Google search. Look at who is hosting that competition. There are multiple bodybuilding, what are called federations or associations. These are the large bodies that are NPC, IFBB is the biggest one. This is the federation that hosts the Arnold and the Olympia, the two biggest bodybuilding shows in the US. So the NPC is the amateur arm and the IFBB is the pro arm. All of these federations generally have an amateur and a pro federation, essentially. It's the same federation, but they'll have usually sometimes different names for the amateur and the pro arm of their federation. OCB is one that is a natural drug tested federation, as I mentioned earlier. It is OCB amateur, OCB pro. They don't change the name. NPC IFBB is another one. There's no end in sight to the federations out there. There are lots of federations. Some are more local, small federations. Others are larger. Others are nationwide or worldwide. I compete with the FMG. I'm an FMG pro. I was a WBFF pro before that, and I have done NPC competitions and a federation out of Georgia, the Southeast region, Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, called SNBF. So there are lots of federations, but the easiest way, rather than trying to learn about all the federations that exist, would be to look up what competitions are near you, and then you'll see, because some of these federations are local to a particular region of the US, or they might just be international, like ICN is a Canadian federation. So there's certain ones that only exist in certain areas. So it makes more sense to just look at your locale, what's close to you, to find shows, and then you can find out which federation that show is being hosted by. And for the larger federations, they will also have promoters within that federation that are hosting that particular show. For example, NPC is massive. In different parts of the country, they might have particular promoters that host certain shows in certain areas. Once you get into the sport, and if you work with a coach in that particular federation, they will be able to help you pick a show based on all kinds of things, like whether or not, that promoter and that judging panel at that show is going to be a good experience for you and things like that. So when I get down to finding a coach, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But research the federations and the competitions near you, and then you want to really dive into learning about that federation. Go to the federation website. If the show has its own website, some of these promoters have a website just for the show, for example, you will be able to see all the information you can gather about rules and regulations, what is required from that federation. For example, drug-tested federations, as Celeste was asking earlier, you will be able to see what is the banned substance list. You can get a copy of that. You can find out if they have any what they call therapeutic use exemptions. For instance, a lot of these natural federations, thyroid medications that provide supraphysiological levels for competition, those are banned, but usually you can get a therapeutic use exemption for thyroid medication if it is something that is prescribed to you for, not for sport, but for life, just to bring you to a normal physiological level. I believe HRT falls into that camp as well, except for testosterone. There is no accepted level of testosterone in any federation for men or for women allowed at all, unfortunately. One day I hope that changes, because we're all getting to the point where women in particular, don't even get me started. That's a whole discussion for another day, but I digress. So research your federation, research the rules and regulations, take a look at the divisions that are offered, the categories, review federation rules and regulations, judging criteria for each division. So typically you're going to see, and I can do a whole masterclass on divisions and categories and things of that nature, but the typical divisions you're going to see used to be bikini was the entry level. Bikini is no longer entry level. There is a new a new division on the scene this year, and it is Fit Model. Fit Model has come to the NPC. I do not know yet if of all the other federations, which federations have fit model now as a category and which do not, but I do know that the NPC, it is a new category for the NPC this year, and it is meant to be an entry-level category or division for women, much like bikini once was. It's essentially, if you go online and you check out the photos, you'll see that if you were to look at the bikini division 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that's what bikini used to be. Essentially, the bikini division has gotten extremely muscular and extremely competitive. And unfortunately, a lot of competitors are now taking PEDs just for the bikini division. So this fit model division was meant to be a new entry-level division. So if you do not have a whole lot of muscle mass on you yet, but you want to start competing, fit model is likely going to be the best place to start. From there, it goes to bikini, and then wellness, and then figure, and then physique. And I don't know really if any of these federations still have women's bodybuilding, but that's like the so far outside of natural, such high muscle mass, it's insanity. I'm hoping that they're kind of phasing that out. I think a lot of the federations kind of end at women's physique at this point. So yeah, I'll do another masterclass where we can just talk all about categories, divisions, and I can show pictures and videos and kind of show you all of that. But research that for the federation that you're looking at and go to a show. This is another thing you can do 5 years before you want to compete, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, however far out, go see a show in person. It is absolutely something you want to do before you even begin. Okay, so attend a local competition in your area, any and all federations that you can find locally. Some of them also host virtual or local in-person clinics or workshops where they will explain the rules, they will go through posing, you can practice posing, which we're going to get to in a little bit because posing is a huge component of competing. But check out the federation, go to a local show and see if they host any local or virtual workshops or clinics that you can go and learn more. It'd be great to go meet the people behind the federation or the promoters. Get to know them, ask questions. They're usually very friendly and happy to answer your questions. Okay, let's see. Next step would be, and on my checklist, it's just check boxes. It's not really numbered, so I don't know what number I'm on now, but let's see. Draft your competition budget. So, and this I would probably say would go hand in hand with calculating your prep timeline. So, the next thing would be really, let's talk about the timeline before we even get into the budget. The timeline, how long are you going to need before you'll be ready to step on stage? This is where it would be a really great idea to book a consult with a professional coach in the bodybuilding space. I do individual consults, so if you want to get my thoughts on where you are and how long it would take you to get to stage, assessing your physique, which division you would fit best in, all of that, you can schedule a consult on my website, nataliejgrasso.com, or drop a comment here or on Facebook, DM me or post in the Facebook group, and we can get you set up for a consult. So highly recommend talking to a professional, getting a consult. This is where you're going to need to look at some things. I just had a little DM chat with a friend and former Academy member about this topic. If you have or suspect you have more than 20 to 25 pounds to lose, if you are over 30, 35% body fat, it's not going to be this year. it's going to take you minimum a year. I'm just going to put that out there right now. Essentially, what you want to think about is, first and foremost, as I talked about earlier, you need to build a base of muscle. So if you have not yet been training consistently in a bodybuilding style of training for at least a year, ideally longer than a year, 2, 3, 5 years or more, but minimum at least a year, getting consistent, learning what you're doing in the gym, developing and progressing, having the skills of training, and then being able to push yourself to that next level. From there, when we're talking about a competition prep, the way you usually hear it talked about, that is the cutting phase. That is the phase where you are in fat loss and you have already done the work of building, and now you are shedding the body fat to prepare for stage. That's what's typically considered a prep. So when we're talking about how many weeks out to stage, I generally, when I talk about fat loss, I generally give the rule of thumb that you should be expecting 0.5 pound to 1 pound a week of body fat loss, or 0.5 to 1% of your body weight. So a healthy rate of fat loss is let's say 1% of your body weight. And if you're sitting about anywhere 150, let's say, that's about 1.5 pounds a week of loss on the scale, fat loss. I would even estimate more conservatively and say 1 pound per week. That's generally where I would recommend. So if we're talking about losing 1 pound a week and you have more than 20 pounds to lose, we're already talking about 20 to 25 weeks. So now we're at 6 months just for the fat loss phase. But wherever you are, even if it's only 10 pounds or 15 pounds that you need to lose, I always add an additional 4 to 8 weeks onto that time frame, because fat loss is not linear. We're not always dropping. We're not going to get that drop every single week consistently the entire time. And that's assuming that you are 100% on point with your plan every single step of the way. Even the best athletes, the champions, are doing that. The top in the world are doing that. But most people, especially on their very first prep, you're not going to be 100% on point every single day of your entire prep. So add on another 1 to 2 months on your time frame. So if you have 20 pounds to lose, we're now talking 8 months. If you have 25 or 30 pounds to lose, now we're easily talking 10 months to a year, just in the fat loss phase. So what I would not want you to do is spend an entire year in a fat loss phase to get to stage. That is a long time to be in a cut. Ideally, a stage cut would be 12 to 16 weeks, maybe 20 weeks at the most. I've done 22-week preps, 24-week preps, and I've had breaks in between that time, diet breaks, essentially. So I've had longer preps, but we had breaks in there. So if you don't have enough time to lose all that body fat with breaks, then it's even going to have to be lengthened over that. And I would not recommend a 6-month-long intense cut to get to stage. So if you're looking at 6 months or more from the time frame I just talked about, based on 1% of your body fat or 1% of your body weight per week, or 1 pound per week, then what I would recommend is doing a pre-prep cut for maybe 6 months, maybe 4 months, and then doing a reverse, a restoration phase. And if you don't even know what I'm talking about, I have done other masterclasses on this. So check out the what phase should you be in. And I can drop that link in the description when I'm done with the live, because that would be another great one to watch about, do I need to have a building phase before I start a prep? For most people, the answer is going to be yes. So Short answer here is if you have 25 or more pounds to lose, I would have a cutting phase, do a metabolic restoration phase or a reverse diet, hang out at maintenance, and then go into a building phase for a few months at least, if not another 6 months, minimum the amount of time that you were on that cut, you want to be in a build. Then, so that's a year later now. If you spend 6 months in a cut, then you do a reverse and you spend 6 months in a build, we're already talking another year. Now you can talk about going into a cut for stage. Because ultimately what you want to do is from a healthy, relatively lean body fat, that's where you start your cut. Okay? So ideally, I would say you don't want to start a stage prep unless you are within 15 pounds or less out to a stage lean physique. So, great question, Celeste. How do you figure out goal body fat? I'm mostly curious because everyone always thinks mine is wildly lower than it actually is. Yeah, this is where getting a professional opinion is really helpful. Because as I talk about a lot, every different measure, DEXA, InBody, Renpho, all the different scales, they're so different, BOD, that numbers don't mean much anymore. So I always hesitate to give numbers in terms of this is the body fat percentage you want to be at, or this is how many pounds of body fat you want to have. Because it's going to vary greatly based on the person, their genetics, their physique, what scale they're using, what measurements they're using. This is an example I used on a recent masterclass. One of my fellow FMG pro competitors, she placed top 3 in bikini or bikini 35 plus, one of those categories. And her DEXA had her at like 29% body fat. She carries it really well. My DEXA is typically around stage weight. My DEXA is usually about 17% up to, I've had it from 17, anywhere from 17 to 20% on DEXA. And InBody has had me anywhere from 13 or 14% up to 17 or 18% at different shows. You know, different shows, different years, I've been different body fat percentages. So I can't even say like, based on my experience, I'm at X percentage because it's been different for every show. So at the end of the day, the judges are not asking your body fat percentage. The judges have no idea. They're literally only looking at the bodies on stage in front of them. So it is about what your body looks like and not so much about a body fat percentage. But if you're trying to estimate in terms of how long it might take you, I do have a formula I use with clients based on what their current data shows and then what I see in pictures. So if I'm looking at their body and I'm looking at their data, then I could take their data and say, okay, if they are currently at this body fat percentage and we want to maintain all their lean mass through a prep, ideally maintain all of their lean mass, it's unlikely that when you're lean, you're going to gain lean mass, gain muscle in a cut, especially not a prep cut. A prep cut, you're at risk of losing muscle mass. So we want to maintain all we can. So I'll do a calculation of what their current lean body mass is divided by what I believe to be their goal lean mass percentage, which is the inverse of your goal body fat percentage. That's something I would decide on based on looking at what they look like, where they are, and then what might make sense for what we might be looking for on stage. And then I will be able to calculate what their goal stage weight would be. My worksheet, which Celeste, you may have my worksheet, uses that formula. So you may want to take a look at my body composition goal setting worksheet, plug in your numbers there and see what you get. and then holler at me in the Facebook group. We can talk more about it. But yeah, so getting a professional opinion is a great idea at that stage to try to decide, how many pounds you have to lose on the scale, in terms of, how much body fat do you need to lose to determine your timeline. Over years of doing this, I have gotten to the point where I generally don't sit more than 10 to 15 pounds above stage weight. So a good 12-week, you'll see a lot of 12-week preps. A lot of pros and a lot of competitors who've been doing it for a long time generally don't do more than a 12-week prep. Earlier on, I used to do 16 or 20 or more weeks, and now I like to get it done quickly and get out. So let's see. So calculate your prep timeline. Let's see. You already reviewed the judging criteria for the different divisions. Consider where you need to be. And then draft your competition budget. This is where, if you go to the Federation website and the show website, you will learn, is there a fee to just be a part of the Federation? A lot of the federations require you to get a Federation card to be a competitor with them. That's just a general one-time fee for the year or 2 years, depending on Federation and their rules. And then you would need to register for a show, so you'd have show registration. The biggest costs are going to be your prep coaching, your posing coaching, your training, if it is separate from prep coaching. But most of the time, your prep coach will be giving you your training and your nutrition plan and guiding you through the whole process. But let's say a gym membership or something to that nature. Obviously, your food and supplements, but I don't really budget that in. That's something I'm going to be consuming anyway. And then the other big things for stage are going to be your bikini, your shoes, hair and makeup, tan. Federations that are drug tested may charge you for the polygraph fee, things of that nature, and anything else related to that particular federation's show and the things associated with the show. Highly recommend booking a photo shoot, looking at local photographers. That's something you would want to look at putting in your budget. I'm sure I'm forgetting things, but I do have a budget template as well inside the Academy. Let's see if I have it on this same document here. Competition expenses, yes. Coaches, trainers, gym membership, posing coach, practice heels and a practice suit, or otherwise known as a posing suit or posing heels that may be different from the ones you would wear on stage. But then, of course, your bikini, shoes, jewelry. Certain federations like mine, mine used to have a stage gown round, which I'm excited because this year in 2025, they have done away with the gown round for bikini and wellness athletes. And now we're just doing bikini rounds. So that's one less thing I have to budget for and plan for and organize. So I'm thrilled about it. But my federation does have a fancy media night, and the federation I came from, WBFF, they as well have a fancy registration night, sometimes a separate media day where you would want to plan hair, makeup, outfit, and all of that for those events as well. But most of your mainstream bodybuilding shows are just going to have the show itself, and your registration is just you in a robe with your hair in curlers, and you don't have to do any extra expenses for the registration night or day. It's usually just an athlete meeting, or the day before when you go and you pick up all your competitor number and all of your stuff. But other things you might want to consider having are things like a robe for backstage, a cooler or one of those meal prep bags for show day or travel. If you're traveling for your show, of course, you have to consider all of the travel considerations like hotel, flights, all of that, which I would highly recommend for your first show to do a local show that you do not have to fly out somewhere to do, but just drive somewhere locally would be ideal. But a lot of the time it can be helpful to actually stay at the host hotel. Most of these shows have a host hotel where they do the tanning, they do the registration. And depending on where you are, some of these hotels actually host the show as well, or they'll be at a local venue nearby. It can sometimes be very convenient to just pack everything up and go stay at the host hotel and be there for everything you need. But there's a bunch more stuff like I already talked about all of that. Mani-pedi, waxing or exfoliation products. Stage videos and stage photos. If they're not included in the registration fee, there may be an additional fee for those. And then other little things. Dark sheets and towels for the hotel, because when you get that tan put on, if you're staying in the hotel, you don't want to ruin their stuff and get charged a fee. So bring your own dark sheets and towels for your tan and your makeup. There is something called they have different names for them, but it's basically a pee funnel for women. So you can not go to the bathroom and ruin your tan. So that's a little thing, lesser known thing that most people don't know about that is really helpful. We used to just cut out the bottom of plastic cups, disposable cups, and use those. But now they have funnels, so you can order those on Amazon. There's one called a she-pee, I think. There's different names for them. And then other things like, let's see, you might want to have, in my resources in the academy, I have things like a show day packing list. That'll be other things you want to consider purchasing, things like that. But that pretty much covers it. Get your budget together. Because if you get your budget together and you realize, oh, now is not the time for me to compete because I couldn't afford all of this. So I need to actually save up or go to local companies and get sponsors. Sponsorship is not just for elite athletes. If you are connected in your community to particular organizations, companies that might consider sponsoring you to get their brand seen in front of bodybuilding audiences, you can approach local businesses and ask them to sponsor you. So that's another thing you would definitely need to do some research about, but these are things that all need to go into your planning and preparation before you start the prep. So craft your budget, and the big thing, huge thing, find a coach, a prep coach and a posing coach, or you can sometimes get both in one. But what you want to do is ultimately you want to find a coach who is knowledgeable in your federation, the federation with which you will be competing, particularly with posing. For your posing coaching, you need a coach who is very familiar with the posing for your federation. I compete in FMG. FMG has a very different style of posing than NPC or OCB. OCB is a little different than NPC, so they're all a little bit different. You want to find a posing coach that is very well versed in that federation, which is another thing you may be able to find by going to your federation website. Sometimes they have coaches that they recommend locally. Another thing I said I was going to mention that I don't think I put on here, but I will be adding to this list, is getting into communities, as I talked about earlier. Facebook groups. If you just search first-time bikini competitors, bikini wellness figure competitors, or you can ask me and I'll drop some of the groups that I'm in. But you'll find a whole bunch out there with lots and lots of members. This is another great way to say, hey, I'm looking for a posing coach with this federation. Do you have recommendations? And then you can get recommendations from other athletes of who they work with and who they would recommend. Same thing with a prep coach. You can ask those same questions. I get inquiries because somebody tagged me in a group where somebody asked for, does anybody know a coach who will do carnivore? A lot of the time in these mainstream groups, they are not okay and not cool with keto, carnivore, low carb, and they will just bash it to death, and they will tell people who ask about it, you shouldn't be doing that. So whenever somebody asks questions about keto carnivore, competing, low carb, or for a coach, somebody tags me there. So if you ever end up somewhere and somebody's asking that question, tag me. I'll be happy to pop in and chat with that person. But you can do that. You can ask for, who do you work with for a coach? Give me your thoughts on this coach. Finding a coach is kind of its own. I could do a whole masterclass just on how to interview a coach, the questions you should be asking, the things you should look for in a coach. The main thing I will say is you need to feel comfortable with that coach. You are going to be sending them practically naked, half naked bikini pictures every single week or more than once a week. You are going to be talking to them about your cycle, about your hormones, about your poop. You need to be comfortable talking to that coach about anything. You need to not feel weird going to that coach to ask them anything and bringing up things that you're uncomfortable with if something that they have recommended makes you uncomfortable. So I would say the number one thing is have a rapport and know that that is somebody you want to feel that you can trust more than anything else. But I probably should talk about that in a whole other class because it's a topic in and of itself. All right, timeline, budget, coach, posing coach. It's never too soon to get a prep coach or a posing coach. You can be years out and 30 pounds away from stage and you want to start posing. And I know it is the most uncomfortable thing in the world to pose when you do not feel like you like your body. But I promise you it's not going to get any easier the longer you wait. And the longer you wait, the more nerve-wracking it's going to be and more of a learning curve you're going to have later. So it's never too soon to start posing. Look up along those lines while you're doing your research. Go on YouTube, look up your federation, look up your competition, see if you can find videos from that particular competition. For a lot of the NPC shows, you'll be able to find video. You can see what the other competitors look like. You could actually look at your physique and look at the physiques that end up on stage of that show and say, do I think I can get there realistically? I will say natural federations are a much more friendly place to start. They're much less competitive in terms of how lean and how muscular they are because they're not on PEDs. You have a level playing field there. But yeah, look up videos from the shows and look up posing videos. Research what the posing looks like for that particular federation. Get a feel for it. Watch. The more you watch, the more you internalize. You'll notice things, and then you can start practicing. Even if you don't have a coach yet, a posing coach yet, you can start practicing. The best way to start practicing posing is to film yourself. Not looking in the mirror, but have a camera set up and pose to the camera and then watch the video back. Because if you're always posing in the mirror, you are going to be a deer in headlights when you get on stage because you are not used to posing without seeing what you look like in front of you. You have to pose and learn to feel what the poses feel like without seeing it. We could do a whole class on posing. I know I get tons and tons of questions about posing all the time. Let's see. Research, while you're doing your research the stage suit and shoe options for your particular federation and division. So this is where looking at other competitors' photos and videos and for the particular federation and division that you're looking at will come in handy. Angel Competition Bikinis is one of the largest companies for suits and shoes. Wait, do they do shoes? They may not do shoes. I think they just do suits and jewelry and accessories. I have started working with them by doing their fashion shows, and I've ordered some suits from them in the past. I have applied to be an ambassador for them, and one day I would love to be a sponsored athlete. So for those who join the academy and decide you want to compete, or you want to work with me personally, one-on-one, to do comp prep, I will be looking at Team KBB apparel through Angel Competition Bikinis. They do offer team apparel for posing suits, robes for stage, and things like that. So that'll be really fun. But research what kind of suit you would need for your division, because the divisions have different styles of suits. Bikini and figure, for example, are different styles of suits. Fit model is different from bikini. And I believe bikini and wellness are pretty much the same. They might be a little bit different, but pretty much the same. All federations require heels except for women's physique. So fit model, fit model, bikini, wellness, and figure all wear shoes, heels. And yes, Becky, Shoe Fairy is the main. Shoe Fairy is like the Angel Competition Bikinis of the shoes. So Shoe Fairy and Angel Competition Bikinis are like the two biggest companies when it comes to suits and shoes. Now with my latest order from Angel, they do couture bikinis, which my federation requires couture style bikinis. It's not the typical mainstream bikinis you're going to see for most general mainstream bodybuilding federations. We do these unique couture designer suits. They're amazing. So I had a couture suit made for this upcoming fashion show at the Arnold, and I have them doing shoe embellishments because I do have some basic clear shoes that are the Shoe Fairy. It's probably where I got them originally. Shoe Fairy shoes that I'll be adding the embellishments to match my bikini that Angel created for me, because we do a lot of that in the FMG. We have more of that fashion element to it. Let's see. And then the rest of the stuff on my pre-prep checklist would be other things to purchase early, which would be a practice posing suit, practice posing heels. So you can practice walking and posing in the type of suit that you would be wearing on stage. I have a brand new posing suit from Angel that I will show you. Super excited because they just launched practice posing suits on Amazon. It's very limited right now in terms of sizes and styles, but I ordered mine. I promised them I would do a review. So when I do my check-in photos this week, it will be in my brand new posing suit. I think it actually goes this way. I don't know. Does it go this way? It goes this way. He likes it. Look at how tiny these bottoms are, y'all. This is the pro cut. So as you can see, the front and the back don't look very different. The pro cut is teeny tiny. So I'm super geeked about that. And then eventually I will be getting KBB posing suits for Team KBB. But I'm so excited about this. So those you can now get on Amazon, and you can get them right away. So that's super exciting. If you want something more custom, particularly sizes or styles, you can get them on the Angel Competition Bikinis website. I really hope that I can get a code for y'all soon for some discounts. Oh, this is a good question. Celeste says, is the stage usually slippery or do they put something on it? It is generally matte. Now, I'm going to say that, but also there are lots of different venues in lots of different places. So at least for FMG, I can't speak to the other federations, but at least for FMG, what they do with us, which is so amazing, is that before the show, we do an athletes meeting on the stage. So we actually get to walk onto the stage. They will walk us through the walk that they want us to do, which is, I'm glad you asked this question because it also ties into this. When you're looking up the federation and the particular competition, the particular show you want to do, they should tell you on their website somewhere what kind of walk you will be doing. We have things called a T-walk, where you would walk up to the front, to the right side of the stage, to the left side of the stage, and then back, and then to your spots while they do all of the comparison rounds, and then you all exit. It would be kind of cool. Maybe we can do a masterclass all about kind of the run of show. What does a show actually look like? How does it run? What can you expect? That kind of thing. But they walk you through all of that. And I love that they bring us all out onto stage for that. So when I was in Mexico, for example, which for those that don't know, I broke my left toenail off entirely. Like I busted my toe and my toenail came off 2 days before the show. So it was a miracle that I even got into heels for the show. And I was petrified of what that stage was going to be like. And I actually changed my posing routine a little bit right at the end to be much more cautious in the way that I was stepping on the stage because I was concerned about falling over because of my toe. So I was able to walk on the stage in my stage heels and feel what the stage was going to feel like under my feet. I have been on different stages that were more slippery and others that you were so tacky that you had to pick up and put your, like, we do a lot more stylized posing in FMG. So we can like do a turn. I'm a former dancer. I like to do turns and things of that nature. There were stages where they were so tacky. There's no way I was going to be able to turn. So I had to change my posing routine to make sure I took that stuff out so I could be careful. But it's really going to depend on the venue and the type of stage, because some of these shows are in like convention centers, like NPC. When I competed in NPC, it was in a big convention center and they set up one of those makeshift stages. And when I competed in 2020 in the midst of COVID in Miami, that stage was a little rickety as well. It wasn't the best stage either. But they also they'll tape off the stage usually for the places that they want you to go. So it's really helpful to check out the website, learn in advance. Usually from my experience with other federations, they don't bring you onto stage, but they will do the athletes meeting in the auditorium or in the venue where you're going to be. So at least you can see the stage. And then some may not let you walk on that stage before before the show starts. Thanks for your concern, Becky. How is my toe? It's growing back. It's about halfway back now. It was like a month ago. It was like January when the toenail actually came all the way off. Because up until then, it had been holding on for dear life in one little corner. It was fully off the toe bed, but the nail bed, but like the one side of the cuticle was still hanging on. So I actually ended up snipping that part off, maybe at the end of December or beginning. I think it was maybe the end of December. So it is starting to grow back. It's about halfway back now, but I might have to go see a podiatrist because it's weird. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. It looks like there's like a bump. So it's growing in awkwardly. There's like a bump and a dip. So I might go see a podiatrist and see, is this okay? Is there something that needs to be done? Is it going to grow back correctly? But it doesn't hurt anymore. The injury part is gone. So I'm most happy that I can crack my toes again, because as a dancer, I like to crack my toe knuckles, and I couldn't do that for a long time, and it was really annoying. I've been dancing. I'm back in the dance studio. I've been dancing just fine with it. I can wear heels just fine. Crazy time. You never know what might happen at a show. Practice, practice, practice. So yeah, purchase a posing suit, purchase heels. Yeah, that's basically the end of the pre-prep checklist. So that's everything you want to do, before you even start the prep. From there, when you get to kind of your prep window, this is where you and your coach will work on how far out are you going to start your cut? What is the plan? Setting your nutrition plan, your training plan for your actual stage prep. Check-ins weekly, a couple times a week sometimes, your posing coaching, all of that good stuff. That's where you really start getting super serious about all of that and working your way down that timeline. So we can talk more about that on a future masterclass. Also coming this week, I kept promising, and I'm finally making good on this promise. I will be doing the full review of my last year prep, which I did with using Rob Sykes' Keto Savage System prep protocol, that he wrote his book, Ketogenic Bodybuilding. It's the protocol he talked about in his book. And then he came out with a course called the Savage System, and he goes through the protocol in there. And he has a community called the Tribe that you could join the Tribe, or if you purchase the course, then you get to be a member of the Tribe. And so you can get some support along your way there. So I'm going to talk more in depth about what that protocol looked like, how it was different from protocols I've done in the past and coaches that I've worked with in the past, and the way that I've done my preps before that, and my overall opinion of my experience with it. Also, I have a referral link that I'll be able to share for his course, if that's something that you're interested in doing, after I share my experience and what you think. So I'm not going to do that live. I'm going to do that as a pre-recorded video that will go up on my YouTube, and I'm aiming to do that this week. So it should be up by next week. So I'll be posting that all over the socials, so you'll be able to grab that. Any other questions before I hop off for the night? It's great to have y'all with me. And if you have additional questions about comp prep, drop them in the comments. I'll do another masterclass on anything else y'all want to know about prep, what to think about in advance, any detailed questions you have. We can go into all of that in the future. And if you are looking for a coach, holler at me for a consult, or we can hop on a discovery call and talk about what coaching looks like privately, or what the Academy membership would look like. All right, ladies, that is all I have for tonight. I'm going to sign off. Have a great week, and I'll see you in the interwebs. Bye.